What is going on, guys? Thanks for tuning in to yet another video. My name is Anthony Pinto da Costa, and you are watching the Canadian Physio Student. All right, people, so I'm back again with another video interview, and today's a special one. Today I got a physiotherapy student from my beloved alma mater, Queen's University, and her name is Kierstyn Cotnam. Kierstyn, how's it going today?
It's going pretty good.
Good. No, I appreciate you coming on. I know you got a lot going on, especially with O month and COVID and starting second year physio school. So really appreciate you taking the time to do this.
No problem.
Perfect. All right. So before we kind of get into it, just to let the viewers know, usually when I have a student on, I kind of do a Q&A type style interview. Today's still going to be a little bit about that, but because we both went to Queen's Physio, it's going to be more interactive, and we're both going to provide our point of view and our experience in the program so that you guys can get as much information as you possibly can when you're deciding on what schools you want to pick or what schools you want to apply to in the future. So hope that sounds good. Ready to get right into it?
I am.
All right, perfect. So why don't you just start off with an introduction, tell the people who you are, where you're from, education level, and maybe future plans in PT.
Yeah, of course. So like Anthony said, my name is Kierstyn Cotnam. I actually come from a really small town in northern Ontario called Mattawa, which is just along the Ottawa River. I'm currently tackling, as he said, my second year in my master's at physical therapy at Queen's. I've been keeping an open mind about which area I want to go into with PT, but I'd like to incorporate my desire to own a CrossFit style gym with a clinic, which kind of points me in the direction to MSK, but I like the idea of trying to incorporate neurological conditions like people with Parkinson's disease that would really benefit from those large amplitude, full range movements, Olympic lifting. So that's kind of where I'm headed with my physio, hopefully, journey. But for now, got to finish the schooling. So yeah.
Got to get through it. No, I love all that. That's a great niche. And honestly, I was working the other day, and we actually have a patient who you'd probably appreciate this. He's a stroke patient, and we actually have him doing deadlifts in the clinic. So this is right up your alley, which is awesome. I'm excited to see it in the future. So that's good. That's good. Okay, so I'll get into the first question here. So, very broad. I know you've only been through half of it, but how has your experience been so far in the Queen's PT program?
So Queen's, just saying challenging to say the least, however, definitely rewarding. Overall, super fun experience and continuously has amplified over and over again my desire to get into this field. Biggest challenge for me has been to become more comfortable with uncomfortable situations, like presenting skills in front of classmates or tackling lengthy interviews and assessments or practicing fake scenarios to prepare for clinical exams. Like those things can kind of be intimidating, but once you get over them and realize that the uncomfortable isn't quite so uncomfortable, then it gets a little bit easier. I've really been kind of taking a thought of not being afraid to fail and rather just tackling whatever comes my way with an open mind and being grateful, just being grateful and having a grateful heart for being where I am and taking on what I'm taking. So just keeping in mind, like your classmates really become your best friends and your profs are in your corner. So the support is really, honestly, the greatest part of the whole program. I will say this, the first semester was a lot and at times completely overwhelming and may even seem impossible, but it's definitely possible. And everything that happens in that first semester really prepares you for the placement in January. So the reason it is so much is just because they're trying to get you in the best position to enter the first level in the field. So I am thankful that I got into the field. Hello, Fowler.
Oh, nice. You got a dog. That's awesome.
So say hi, do ya? Yeah, that's my dog, in case anybody's wondering. But as I was saying, just thankful for getting into the field so early, and all the hard work, late nights, and stress are really worth it. So just something to keep in mind. And just to jump into that now, I know we've had a lot of unexpected changes and strict guidelines and all of that stuff we've been encountering with COVID, and I know all physio students everywhere are going through that. There's a lot of unknown and a lot of what's next, but I am super proud and super thankful for our team of profs and the program directors at Queens that have been making the huge changes that we need to make sure that we move forward with our education. By no means not saying it was easy, and some of it did really suck because ultimately online learning sucks sometimes, and we just kind of have to get through it, but we made it work, and supporting each other just helped everybody pull through, so it's been good.
That's awesome. No, I love all of that. And honestly, like even just reflecting on my own experience, I have a lot of the same comments. And I think for me, my favorite part of the Queen's experience is exactly what you said, just that support and that camaraderie with all the students within the class, you know? Like I can't say that I miss the grind of physio school, but I just
Yeah.
miss like being in class with everybody, seeing all your friends, going out together and just always being together, right? Because it's just like a massive family. And once you graduate, you're gonna, yeah, exactly. And once you graduate, you're gonna meet up with your classmates, and like all you're ever gonna want to do is reminisce, right? So, if you're going into your second year right now, definitely cherish it. It's gonna go like that, and yeah, no, Queens is awesome. And then the city of Kingston, can't say enough good things about it, right? I love this dog,
Yeah.
by the way.
Oh
This
yeah,
is a great
definitely.
addition. But yeah, no, Kingston is awesome. Like I was honestly like this close to staying there after I graduated, but had some other decisions I had to make. But
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't mind returning there for a weekend or so. So that's awesome.
Agree
Sweet.
with that.
Okay. Next question here. I guess we'll kind of tackle this together. You can kind of go into the first year, and then I'll break down the second year a bit. But can you just provide a brief overview of the Queen's PT program?
Yeah. So the program is basically 24 months, and it's broken down into 14 blocks. So for my first year, there's the block 1 and 2 in your first semester. That's kind of jam packed into you're just gaining a ton of information, like looking at mostly MSK stuff at the beginning, but like kind of also just preparing you for clinic and all that. It's definitely the toughest part, like I mentioned before. Then after that block, we go directly into placement in January, which is your block 3. And then you're returning in February for your block 4 and 5, which is the next step of classes. So things like cardio rest, which I just took, neuro and spine are the ones that you would be taking at that point. And then that goes from February until May. And then you're starting in June for block 6 or in July for block 7, which is your second placement. So you either take the 6 or the 7 placement block, basically. So you have the potential for an early kind of summer break or a later summer break, which is kind of nice. And then once that's done, you're returning in the fall for the second year,
Yeah,
basically.
perfect.
And then,
Great breakdown. And then yeah, after that, start second year, which is what you're about to start here. It's definitely a little bit lighter than that first year. It's broken down now into 6-week semesters. So you go in and you start with pediatrics and geriatrics. Those are the only courses you have at that time. And it's basically just in those courses, you're applying what you learn in that first year with regards to musculoskeletal, neurology, and cardiorespiratory to special populations. So, kids and older adults are obviously going to be different than the general population and just adults and athletes, right? So, just knowing how to assess and treat those individuals is definitely what you gain from those semesters or that semester. And then after that, you go into the next block, which is your third placement. Again, no different from the other placements. You're just continuing to hone your skills and just build up on your confidence and competence as a physio. After that, you have a little bit of a break, and then you go into your second semester, which is actually a lot of review. So you have one course called the Motor Function and Occupation, which is basically just an advanced musculoskeletal course. So you do review a lot of your first year, but again, you're just advancing it and making yourself more confident before you head into the field. And then after that, you have, within that same semester, you have cardiorespiratory 2, which again, just more advanced cardio rest skills and assessment techniques. And then last course in that block is going to be complex health conditions, which is basically just all conditions that don't fit neatly into one category. So, rheumatoid arthritis, there's going to be a cardio reps, there's going to be a musculoskeletal, and there's going to be a neurology component of that. So it's basically just those complex health conditions that we haven't learned about yet. And then after that, you go into the next 2 blocks, which are just 2 placements right in a row. Again, no different, but those are definitely the most important placements because that's when you're like, okay, I gotta do well on these because I'm heading into practice after that. And then you end off with one short semester. It's about 3 to 4 weeks, and it's just business and ergonomics, and you're pretty much done the program after that.
Exciting.
Yeah, awesome.
Very.
And then there's been no changes to that because I know again I graduated a year ago, so maybe they changed something. I don't know if there's been anything.
There hasn't been any changes directly to the program. Like right now, we have a little bit of changes just because of COVID. Like we've already taken geriatrics and peds because we didn't get to go on our placement this summer.
Gotcha.
And so right now we're actually going into the lab intensive period next week to catch up for all the labs that we had to miss because of going on quarantine. But nothing's changed for the program directly. It's just kind of our year, I guess.
Yeah.
In the change right
Gotcha.
now, but
Yeah. Just taking it all in stride. That's good.
pretty much.
That's good. Okay. That's a great overview. Okay. So next question here. Where have you been on placement so far?
Yeah, so unfortunately I only got to do one placement. So normally we would do two in your first year of PT school, but because of COVID we didn't get to do our placement this summer. So I'll just talk a little bit about that. I actually applied to Northern Ontario School of Medicine, so through NOSM, which is an opportunity that's offered to all students. And I would definitely encourage it if you guys are at all interested in learning a little bit more about the North and how it might be different from Southern Ontario and different areas in Ontario. I had the chance to do a placement near my hometown, which was wonderful because I got to return home after that crazy semester and kind of stay home for Christmas and then continue my placement on there, which is awesome. So I got to work with like familiar faces and familiar families, and which was kind of nice to feel a little bit like I'm giving back to my community and being a little bit more involved in that. And I also got to enjoy like the winter months, which are one of my favorites being up north. If you like snow, if you don't, well, I suggest not.
Stay away.
There's a lot of snow up there. So, so in placements, we're required to do a certain amount of hours in neuro and MSK and cardio, and then also in different settings. So we have 2 outpatient, 1 inpatient rehab, and acute care, and then you have an elective, so you can kind of choose what you want to do after that. I did my first placement in acute care because I had no experience in it at all, and I kind of just wanted to tackle it as soon as I could, which can be a little intimidating because, as I mentioned, the first semester we don't really go into like specifics of cardio rest for neuro or anything like that. We're mainly focused on like basic skills, MSK, all of that stuff, so that before we get into the more detailed cardio arrest stuff. So it can be a little intimidating when you don't really know the full details of cardio arrest conditions or how cardio arrest physio kind of what it involves and what it might entail. So I had a little bit more of a learning curve and to take a little bit more time to learn certain things kind of on my own, but honestly it wasn't really that difficult because my CI was incredible. And also I found it kind of nice to be able to apply what I got to experience in my placement to the course as we came around to that in the next block of schooling, which was kind of nice because when certain conditions came up, I can think of a patient that I encountered and it was nice to be able to apply that knowledge directly to that. So it was nice to do that. So just kind of like for anybody that's thinking about that first placement, what should I do? I definitely try and keep an open mind and an option for that because even though you might not have the cardio arrest skills that you think you need, like your CIs are definitely there to help support you. And I think it's definitely beneficial for the courses that you'll be taking later. The majority of my placement patients were people who had undergone a hip or knee replacement or had a hip fracture. We're kind of like a mix of a few cardio arrest for neurological patients, like people with lung infections or diseases, heart failure. I had a few patients with cystic fibrosis. And I actually had the opportunity to be there for someone who had an undiagnosed spina bifida, which was very interesting. Kind of a sad scenario, but it was nice to be able to be a part of the diagnosis and to help him get moving forward and finding treatment and seeking out what he can do next, which was very nice to be a part of that. But being in the acute care setting, it's very, very high pace, very busy. You have a high number of patients and it's big variation. Like every single day you're going in, it could be completely different from the next. day to day. I had the opportunity to work with my CI who has 26 years of experience. So she was very experienced, very incredible, a wonderful teacher. And it was nice too because the team at the hospital, there was quite a few PTs and PTAs that were there, and they were really good at including me in kind of everything, allowing me to be a part of the thought process. And like the PTAs came up to me and asked me questions and stuff like that. So it was nice to feel like I was a part of the family as I did that. The dynamic can be a little intimidating, especially because you're needing to kind of communicate face to face with nurses and doctors and surgeons about patients. So at the beginning, I was like, I don't really know what I should be saying and what I should be communicating. But as you kind of get through it, the first few little patients here and there, and gaining kind of a vibe for it, and just going with the rolls and punches, and you kind of get to experience it and get more comfortable doing that. So that was a lot of fun. It was definitely a great experience.
That's awesome. No, and I love exactly what you said there about going into that placement and maybe not having that core cardio rest foundation yet. I think a lot of people actually bring this up and say this is one of the pitfalls of the Queen's PT program, but I think it could also be a strength. Yes, you do learn all your MSK basically that first semester, and then they ship you off to an acute care where you still apply a lot of that MSK, but there's that whole cardio resp and neuro aspect that you haven't learned yet, right? But I think it's exactly what you said. You're going in with that uncertainty, and you're really trying to figure it out, which is going to help you down the line, because it's literally always going to be uncertain, even when you know all this stuff in the future, right? But I also think exactly what you said. Once you started taking cardio resp after, it all actually made a lot more sense to you, right? The first time you learn about like what's an incentive spirometer, like what's breath sounds, like what's a PEP device, right? You've already seen all that, and you're like, I understand where this actually fits. Whereas I remember learning cardio rest and being like, I have no idea what's going on here until like the 8th week of class. I was like, okay, this is starting to make sense. So yeah, no, I love all that. Yeah, exactly. No, I love all that. That's great. I guess I'll just like quickly go over my placement experiences. So my first placement was actually in Brampton, which is out of the catchment area. It was at a private clinic called the Sport Medicine Specialist. And, private practice was like that area that I was gunning for, and I did end up going into it, but not entirely. And it was a great placement to, just get your feet wet, start getting confident with the skills. But, you leave that placement and you're still like, okay, I don't really, I still don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm getting there. And then, exactly, yeah. And then my second one was at Providence Care, which you know about, hospital in Kingston. And I was on a rehab neuro unit just for acquired brain injury patients, and that was again an awesome experience. After that, I did another private practice, which is in Bowmanville, kind of between like the GTA and Kingston. So that one I actually had to pay double rent. So for any of you watching and considering Queens, that is a reality. We have a very wide catchment area, which we'll talk about soon. And you may be shipped out to these places that you've never even heard of. It's not all of your placements, but there may be a potential that you have to fork out a little bit of extra cash to pay that double rent. But, it's only 6 weeks and we all survive. But yeah, that was a private practice as well. And another great experience to help continue to develop my private practice skills. After that, I was in Napanee at Lennox and Addington County General Hospital. So first rural experience, first acute care experience. Thought I was going to hate it. Absolutely loved it. I actually now, because of that placement, I work in both private practice and acute care. So it was definitely a big realization for me. And like you said, Kierstyn, just keeping that open mind definitely got me through that one and helped me actually really love it. And then the last one, again, private practice. I was in Kingston at Summit Physiotherapy. And that one was basically just the cherry on top. I finished that one. I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm ready. Let's get this thing going. So it was good. It was fun. A lot of fun.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Next question here. What do you think makes Queen's PT different from some of the other programs? And I know it's a tough one to answer, but as best as you can, I guess.
As best as I can.
Yeah.
So I guess just because unless you truly like experience the program or get experience in it, you don't really know exactly what it's all about, right? So I can kind of mention a few things, but like I don't necessarily know exactly every other program, but we'll
Hmm.
just kind of try and hit it. Just as you mentioned earlier, Anthony, like to start it off, Kingston in general is like a beautiful city. And not that other cities aren't, but Kingston is kind of one of those exceptions because I just love that it has like a very small town feel to a big city. And absolutely love the fact that it's located on Lake Ontario because it feels a little homier for me because the water is right there and it's super easy access to water. So when you're on like when you're at school on lunch breaks or when you're commuting to school, it's just pretty much beautiful anywhere. So that's the one thing that I absolutely love about being here in Queens because the campus is gorgeous.
Hmm.
As for the program, I know it's unique in the way that there's some great opportunities for mental breaks between the blocks. So I know a few other students that graduated from other programs that said that, oh, you have a break? I never had a break. And it's kind of nice that Queens jotted in these little breaks here and there. And I know that there's quite a few reasons for that. They kind of blotch everything together, but in a way, it ends up helping us because we get that little mental break, which is really nice. And then, as we were talking about earlier, just having the placement in January. So I know most other schools in Canada don't really have placement until later in the first year, whereas for us, it's right after our first semester. And that can seem a little intimidating, but honestly, it's really good to be able to step out and get into the field earlier and be able to gain that knowledge and kind of remind yourself why you're here and why you're working so hard. So that's definitely a bonus to me because I know once we hit that mental block, you kind of just need something to be like, why am I here? Why am I doing all of this? It was really nice to be able to step in the field and be like, okay, now I know exactly why I'm here and I'm going to keep pushing through.
Yeah.
So also, Queens is probably one of the only schools I think that doesn't have opportunity for electives. I'm not sure, like, I'm sure there's other schools that don't, but we definitely don't. And I'm sure most of the students that are looking into applying have noticed this. But I think Anthony would agree that Queens is pretty good at incorporating a lot of what those elective options would be kind of in our courses and in our curriculum. So obviously not as in-depth as if you were to take a full course on certain things, but they definitely incorporate certain things to be able to prepare you with techniques, research, and experience to be able to tackle it as a physio with the knowledge that we have. So like pelvic floor physio or TMJ physiotherapy and that kind of stuff, even though they don't go like super in depth, but they definitely prepare us for it so that we have a little bit more knowledge. They also dig into, like we said, geriatrics and peds, which I think peds is usually an elective for sure for most schools. And it kind of allows us to see physiotherapy like at both ends of the spectrum, which is awesome. I really enjoyed both those courses. The last thing I wanted to mention was just that Queens, like we mentioned earlier, the catchment area is large. And it can be a little scary not knowing where you might end up and the fact that it could be really far from Kingston or really far from anywhere that you know that you could be staying. But we work pretty well together. Like the students are pretty good at communicating with each other, even from previous years where they've stayed and accommodations that they've had. So we end up kind of working all together to try and figure it out and finding places to live and making those arrangements. So I don't want people to be too intimidated about that because we end up making it happen, right? But the nice thing about that is that the catchment area kind of allows us to have more opportunities in more rural communities. And I know that a lot of people probably have no idea how different healthcare can be in rural communities and how physio isn't necessarily always available in those communities. So it's nice for us to be able to step into some of those experiences and get to know why it would be really important to advocate for PT in rural areas. So I think that's really great too.
Yeah, no, that's a great list of differences. And honestly, just to double down on that, I think my favorite part about the Queen's program is that early placement because you can get in a rut, and I couldn't imagine like going through 8 years of just an academic term, or sorry, 8 years, 8 months of just an academic term before actually just getting my feet wet in some type of clinical setting. Because it recharges you. You get on that first placement, you come back to class, and you're like, okay, let's go. Like, I know exactly what I need to focus on, what's going to be relevant for me, right? And yeah, just exactly what you said about the rural placements. Like I honestly think everybody should go on a rural placement because it's so different. Like that Napanee placement that I had, like it's such an underserved community, you know. And like when you're like a physio in a hospital, like you're like one of the only ones there, and you see everything. It's not like a big
Every,
hospital in Toronto, for example, where you can just be a physio on a floor and just treating stroke patients, right? Like in a rural setting, one patient could be an amputee, the next one could be stroke, the next one could be some type of brain injury, maybe a hip fracture, right? Like you're like everything there basically. So I think everybody should have that experience. And then I think the only one that I would add is just I think in terms of the Queen's identity, like even one of the profs there said that Queen's makes very good generalists. So just having a good base on all areas of practice and not really focusing on one over the other, so that once you get out there, you know, if you want to specialize, take extra professional development courses, then you can kind of shoot your way through that avenue. Whereas like, you know, other schools, like for example, like Western, you hear a lot about like their orthopedic focus. Again, I don't know how true that is. Like all Western
yeah.
grads, they're good in every area of practice, but you know, you just hear about these identity things, right? So yeah, that's the only thing I would add. So that's good. That's good. Okay. So hot topic here, I guess. Last couple questions. This one I have no experience with, so you're gonna have to lead this one. How has Queen's PT kind of adapted to this whole COVID-19 thing going on right now?
Yeah, so I remember the week that it was happening. We were actually preparing for a neuro midterm, I believe it was at the time. So our neuro one midterm, which we had on a Monday, I believe it was, and the whole COVID thing, school shutting down and everything shutting down was basically occurring that Friday and slowly into the weekend. So we were waiting to hear from a prof on whether we were going back to school, if we were even going to have this midterm. And everybody was kind of like panicking because we were like, do we keep studying or do we stop? Like, what's going to happen? And I remember getting a late email on Sunday being like, stay home. We're not writing the midterm. We'll let you guys know what's happening. Like everything needs to be basically transferred over to online, and we're just gonna have to figure it out from there. So
Wow.
it was kind of scary, and we, like I said, there was a lot of unknowns, and everybody was kind of like, what's gonna happen? Are we gonna fall behind? What's next, basically? And I'm honestly baffled, but also like very grateful with how quickly like the PT faculty like adjusted and quickly reacted and transferred like all their plans from their outlines to an online platform and finding ways of having interactive learning even through Zoom, because we had no idea how any of that stuff that we had been doing in class were going to happen virtually. So it was nice to see that they kind of got creative and still found ways to accommodate that and make it happen with us. And they further even adjusted, like I said earlier, they took blocks that would have happened for us later on and brought them up because we were missing placements so that we wouldn't fall behind in our timeline. So our timeline is still lining up with when we were supposed to graduate. So we should still be done by the end of next summer, which is wonderful because we're hoping that the exam timelines can kind of fall back into place of where they were regularly, I guess, because I know a lot of the national exams have been pushed down and they've been offering a lot of different dates. I'm sure they'll still offer that next year, but we're hoping to be able to kind of be along the lines that we were hoping to be before COVID happened. But yeah, the school's been really good. They've created a really good return to school plan for us that's like incredibly detailed, and they're definitely taking like large steps and definitely going beyond what I would have expected them to do to ensure that like our health and safety is a priority when we're returning to our labs next week. So they're providing like detailed videos and descriptions of how we're going to be entering the building and how we're going to be cleaning and how like there's a arrival time to prepare for labs and their departure times, and everybody's kind of in a cohort, so everything's completely planned out, and I'm honestly incredibly proud of what they've been doing. So it's It's definitely looking like it's going to work out great. It's been very hectic, but they've been really good.
It's a whirlwind. It's just a whirlwind. But
Yeah.
honestly though, not surprised. Like there's some great people there in the Queen's faculty. Maybe I'm biased because I graduated from there, but you know, I, they just they just completely flipped this thing over and kept going. And like I always say, nobody knew the answers, nobody knew what to do, but you just did your best. So that's great. I'm glad you guys are still moving forward and hoping to graduate on time and get everything done on time. So that's gonna be
Fingers
good.
crossed.
Perfect. Okay, last question here. Okay, so any last general words or pieces of advice that you have for future PT students in Canada?
Yeah. So I'm just going to touch on this first and foremost because I started my Instagram page for the Queen's program just because I had this in mind. Like, I'm one of those students that applied into physio for years. This was actually my third year applying and finally getting into a program in Ontario. And I know it can be really frustrating, like always applying and not getting acceptance and wondering what your next steps are and kind of getting stuck in a rut in school and stuff. So just really keeping in mind that don't give up. I know it's super competitive, and I know every year it gets even more and even more competitive, and it's intimidating, but just hanging on to that goal and really pushing through. Like, take the time to get more experience in the field, take the time to bring your grades up if that's something that you think is kind of a roadblock. Like, I did all of that. I worked in the field. I took courses absolutely every year that I was off just to kind of bring up that GPA, and I basically did everything I could to make my application look better when I applied every year. And I know this is something that you wonder, like, if the university is looking at your previous application and seeing if you've improved it. And I honestly think they do, because if they're noticing that you're making all of these changes and making the effort to try and get into a program, they're going to look at that as a huge benefit for anyone trying to get into this field, or that a student that's trying this hard is definitely going to excel in this program. So that's definitely something that I've been wanting to share with everybody, and that I continue to kind of let everybody know, like, just really don't give up, because if this is something that you want, then you can definitely make it happen. And along with that too, like, be open to applying everywhere, because I applied everywhere in Ontario. I've applied out west to Alberta and BC. I've applied to Manitoba. I've applied to McGill. I've applied abroad. And actually this year, my third year, I applied to 7 schools and I got into every single one, which is crazy.
Amazing.
Crazy that I didn't get in anywhere. Like, I've always been kind of waitlisted or just not accepted. But this year I had so many options, which was kind of overwhelming, but so many options. I originally was going to be going to McGill, but then when I visited Kingston, I was like, definitely going to Kingston, and I always liked the program, so I definitely chose that as my number one, which I am very glad I did. The next thing that I would just like to highlight for you guys is, once you're in the program, make sure that you enjoy the experience. I know we're here to study, and I know we're here to prepare for the field that we're going into and try and excel and be the best physio that you can be. But really try and take the time to enjoy the experience, like, be with the people that you're taking the courses with, try and experience Kingston. Like, first semester, I feel like I didn't even get out and know what was in Kingston or what's going on. And I tried to make the most time out of it, but now I'm making a lot more time because it's kind of a little bit more slowed down. But experience at Kingston is huge. Like, that's definitely something you want to be doing. Cry, dog. And walking this little dog over here has been helpful for me, I'll tell you that, because when he's crying and telling me he needs to go for a walk, that's a huge help for me, for sure. So that kind of goes into prioritizing your self-care too. So even though we're always focusing on school and trying to keep up with the demands and getting to know the material, it can honestly get you very stressed out, and your anxiety levels will probably reach an all new high that you've never experienced before. So just trying to find those outlets and really hanging on to those and making priorities for those. So, like, if you are in the middle of studying and you can't handle it and you just want to get up and bake some cookies, do it, because honestly, that's just the way it's going to be. Or if you're fed up with studying and you just want to watch a movie, do it. Invite your friends over. have a drink. Honestly, relaxing is going to be the best thing you can do. And also, like, getting to the gym is definitely something that helps me. Moving around heavy weights just to try and relieve that stress is definitely a good outlet too. So it can honestly be anything that you love, just trying to make that a priority. If you know that week is going to be super stressful, try and make time, like be like, I'm going to do this day because I have this test and this thing to do. I'm going to make this slide of this in here. Just make it a priority. Make your friends a priority. Make your family a priority, because life doesn't stop even though you're in this program.
Love it. That's a mic drop right there. Honestly, like, especially just, allotting your time for self-care. It's so huge, right? I honestly felt that during undergrad, I didn't do that as much. And then during physio school, I started to learn that I definitely have to do that. And I actually did better in physio school as a result of it, because I think I was, more relaxed. You take that time and you basically just delineate between the time you have for work versus the time that you have to, do your own personal things. And then once you work, you feel a lot more productive and you feel like you're gaining more from those hours that you're putting in. So honestly, love all that. I hope there's a lot of physio students who listen to that over the next couple of years here. So that's great. Anything else to add, or is that basically summary there?
No, I think that is the summary for me. And like I've said, I have that Instagram page.
Mm-hmm.
If people are looking for more information on Queens specifically, we put a lot of stuff up on there, and like I've shared a lot from other universities too, like Western and Toronto, that have information just on the programs themselves, and kind of just the little pointers here and there on how to prepare and what to do. And if you guys need to check that out, you definitely can.
Perfect. Love it. I'll put it on the screen here if I haven't done it already. Put it in the description below. Definitely follow it if you're a prospective student. Honestly, when I first saw that you did it at the beginning of your first year, I was hyped about it, because I think more people got to get on socials and show the experience, because people are yearning for it. People want to see what it's like. People want to see the different perspective, and I think you doing that is awesome. So definitely keep it up.
Thank you.
Perfect. All right. So guys, if you like this video, make sure to like, share, and of course, smash that subscribe button. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to leave a comment in the comment section down below. If you don't want to do that, you can reach out to me on my Instagram at CDN Physio Student. You can also reach out to Kierstyn here, which I'll put the ad up on the screen again, and then we'll go from there. All right. So thanks again for watching. I'll see you guys at the next video.
Yeah. Another day, another dollar to be made. I'm a workaholic, ballin' hard until the grave. Used to wanna be a baller for the NBA, till the fellas around me started dunking in the 7th grade.